Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to another video from the USP Library. We're making this video today as a supplement to the 3 videos that are already included in the Information Research Skills Moodle. So there's 3 videos there already, 2 from YouTube, 1 from Mr. John C. Hart from the Department of Computer Science at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. So I'm going to show you a little bit more about data visualization, which types of charts you might use for which types of data, and then I will show you a few tools for that as well, like Plotly and Canva. So there's also links to these different websites in Moodle if you want to follow along. So let's get started. So there's many different types of data. And part of data visualization is knowing how to portray the information accurately to the person who's looking at your presentation or whoever you're showing it to. So with bar charts, we have 2 types of variables. We have an independent variable along the bottom, and we have a quantitative dependent variable on the y-axis. So for this type of chart, you'll have just any sort of variable here, like it could be countries, it could be states. I wouldn't actually use countries in the bar chart because as you saw maybe in the video about Tableau, your bar chart would just be way too long. It doesn't really help the user, the person that you're showing the information to. It doesn't help them to distinguish between the bars. So, maybe only do like 10 different independent variables, and then you'll have some kind of numerical, which is the quantitative part, variable on the side that depends on this one. For line charts, which is kind of like your scatter plots, for these you'll have 2 quantitative variables, continuous variables, and you'll have 1 independent and 1 dependent. So it's both numerical types of values, but this one depends, again, like in the bar chart, on the independent variable here. So this could be any type of variable, and then this one is dependent on it. The scatter plot, these are both independent variables. So this is kind of where you could look at 2 different types of things, like some of the other charts we've looked at. You could look at the GDP of countries and then the different countries. So this could be the GDP and this could be countries. You plot the points on the chart and then you can see if there's any type of correlation. So correlation isn't necessarily causation, but you can still see a correlation if they line up in any way. So like this is saying it clusters, they can yield density. This is another type of chart where you have a discrete nominal independent variable. So this would be something like colors or things that can't be described as a number, and then you would have a quantitative variable here. So the chart, it's basically just sideways. It's kind of like a bar chart, but you would use this as something that's not quantitative. For this table, you would just use 2 different discrete independent variables. So neither one is dependent on the others. So I'm trying to think of a good example for this one. For a discrete variable, you could have colors here and t-shirt designs, something like that. And for this one, it benefits from the position only. So you can see where things are positioned, but it isn't going to really show you any type of correlation in this table. So just going over this again, we have discrete variables. Discrete just means that they're separate values. So anything, you could have a difference between red, green, and blue, those would still be discrete because they're separate values. So there's no in-between values. Continuous could be ones that have decimal points. Ordered values, ordinal, so ordered and discrete values, ordinal values like sizes of t-shirt, and then quantitative, which we talked about a lot in this presentation. Quantitative is just like different numbers, and they're discrete numbers because they're completely separate, 1, 2, 3. So we also have unordered values, so this could be like things that you can't really compare in terms of increasing in size or number, so shapes, and also categories like nationality. So we can still use a category like nationality or GDP or something like that. It's still discrete separate values, but this would be considered unordered values. So these are just different types of data. So these can all be types of data that you want to represent in one of your visualizations. We also have continuous values, which are ordered, like altitude and temperature, and we also have cyclic values, directions, and hues. We don't see this fourth category as much. You'll mostly be working with these types. So what's the best types of charts to use based on, is it nominal or discrete, or quantitative continuous, like temperature and altitude? And then if we have independent and dependent variables. So this is in the PowerPoint presentation called Charts that's included in Moodle if you want to look at this page when you're trying to make a decision about what types of visualization to use. So for example, if we have an independent, this is the independent variable only along the bottom. So if we have a quantitative continuous independent variable and we have a quantitative continuous independent variable, and those are the two things that we're trying to show. So like we said, like GDP and then country, you can make the scatter plot. Or you may want to use for a nominal discrete, so separate values, independent, you would go with a bar chart if you have a dependent variable. So it all depends on if you have an independent and an independent variable, you might use the scatter plot or the table or the Gantt chart. If you have an independent variable and then some dependent variables, depending on which one, you'll use a bar or a line chart. So you can also determine this pretty easily just by trying Plotly, and you can put your data in and then just select different types of charts to change how it looks. So I'll be showing you that in a second. So let's go to Plotly next. So there is a resource called Tableau that is free for students. I'll just show you where you can sign up for that. So just type in Tableau and students in Google. So there's one video that I've included in Moodle, and the lecturer, he does a very good job of explaining how to use Tableau, how to change your data around in the Tableau software. So the whole purpose of this data visualization unit is just to show you that there's different ways of displaying your data, and it is a communication skill in order to display your data properly so that people can understand what you're getting at. And now more and more, whether you're working in business, whether you're working in the arts, or whether you're working in the sciences, you do need to be able to display your data in a way that makes sense to people. So Tableau is one of those such programs where you can upload in data sets and learn how to manage your data. But I'm also going to show you today Plotly, and we have a sample data set here. This is years and then temperatures based on coordinates in different parts of the world. So I will just log into this quickly. Okay, so login. So you can make a free account in Plotly. Of course, there's some paid version of it, but it's 100% web-based cloud storage data visualization software that's online. So you can also, we're going to look at the Chart Studio, I think, today. But you can also work with, if you're into that, if you're really into data science, you can work with Dash, .js, Python, R, and Shiny, and React. It works with all these different types of things, so you can program it very well. When you log in, you'll see different charts and grids that you've created in the past. So you can see everything that you've created there. I'm going to go to Create Chart here, and I'll just show you the basic chart types. So if you can either enter in values right here, it basically looks like an Excel spreadsheet, or you can import in your spreadsheet, which is what we'll do in a second. There's also examples. So for example, I'll show you world economies and life expectancy. So this is a bubble chart. So if we wanted to take two seemingly unrelated things, which is the GDP of a country's economy, and then also what their life expectancy is in each country, we can create a really nice looking chart that's very visual. So one thing that was discussed in one of the other videos is that you want to be able to provide details on demand. So this is a lot of bubbles, but I can zoom in to spread out the data. I can pan by clicking that. I can then click and drag around to see these different things, and you notice if I hover over any of these bubbles, it's not only color coded, so it's really easy to see. So this bubble represents Oceania and the country is Australia. So it gives all these details on demand. It has their life expectancy, which is about 81 years. It has their GDP per capita. It has their population, and it has the year that the data was taken. So let's zoom out again so we can kind of get the big picture. So Australia has a high GDP, and it also has a good life expectancy. Other countries, the US is kind of up there, Italy is up there, Korea is up there. But as we look down here, we can see, unfortunately, Africa is kind of down in the bottom part. So, I mean, based on this information from 2007, if you look up here, you can see that for each one, you have your data all input into this chart here. Not a chart, but a spreadsheet. And then for each one of these things where it says add trace here, you have your x-axis, Europe, and then y-axis, Europe, hover text. You see the chart type is the scatter plot. And then there's all different features here that you can use to make it look like this nice bubble chart. So this is done completely in Plotly. And the link for Plotly is in the Moodle as well, so you can experiment with it. So we have a pretty good idea that in some ways a country's economy does correlate to their life expectancy. So this is one good example. So we have different traces for each data, so even if you have a spreadsheet with so many different columns and everything, you can always add more here so that you can compare them on one visualization. So when you're done, you can use the save. So we can save this as a public chart. We have to save it as public because we're using the free version. and now we can export it. So we can save it as a PNG image file, PDF file. SVG is the comma delineated file for Excel. So we can export it in all these different ways. But I'm going to go ahead and show you one example where I upload in. Maybe I can drag and drop this in. No, let's just upload it. So I will just go to my flash drive and grab my sample data set here. So this is my temperature data. Actually, let's just do a totally new one. So I'm just going back to the main page so I can just get out of the bubble chart that we were just looking at, go to create chart, and now we will upload the file one more time. Okay, so here's my data right up here, and here I can enter in my chart titles, so I'll just say temperature comparison by year. Let's just put it as that. So because we have all these different years of data. So let's start just using the scatter plot like we did before. So our x-axis along here is going to be, let's say, by year. And then the y-axis will pick the northern hemisphere. So just by entering in the x and the y-axis, the year is actually more of a dependent, sorry, the independent variable. The northern hemisphere is your independent, or your dependent variable. So let's go, we can also look at it as a bar chart. So these are negative temperatures here. And if we hover over each of these, we can see the points. So in 1941, it was 16 degrees. We can also add another trace here. So for this one, let's pick the southern hemisphere. So now we can compare the two colors, northern hemisphere temperature, southern hemisphere temperature. And let's say we want to go back to a line plot. The line plot is quite good for this data set, and we can see how the two are compared. And at any point we can hover over the data just to see that. Other types of charts we have access to, that's the line plot, the scatter plot, and the bar chart. This puts it mostly under business. There's so many different ones you can do with Plotly. You can do contour maps, heat mapping, 3D surfacing. It's all dependent on what data set that you put in at the top here, and then you can just change from different ones. So there's a lot of different options in Plotly. It's fun to play around with. I would really recommend just going in, either using the sample data set that's in Moodle and trying different things with it, or you can just go up here to import and go to one of these example charts and just play with it. That's the easiest way to learn anything, is just to see how it looks. In this one, you can also, again, zoom in on certain parts and then pan and drag around. So you could even use this as a screenshot if you wanted to have a comparison. But if we want the whole overview, we can zoom out. And then here's our full chart here. Okay, so that's Plotly. That's probably one of the better ones to use to start off with. We also have one other resource called MetaChart that's quite easy to use. I'll just show you it very briefly. It's just meta-chart.com. So we did Plotly first, but then we also have this meta chart. This creates for you simple pie graphs, simple bar charts, things like that. So Plotly has some more advanced features. If you just need to put like a little bar chart or a pie graph into your presentation or into a paper you're writing or something like that, I would just use meta chart as well. So it includes all these different kinds. It also does scatter plots and line charts. You may want to use Plotly for that instead. If you want a pie chart or a bar chart, this one is quite good. So you can just select your chart type. So I'm just going to select a pie chart since we kind of already looked at the other ones. But this one you can also download as an image file, and then you just insert it directly into your report or whatever you're working on. So first you have to pick your design. There's a lot less options with this one, but I would go with the normal type, not the 3D type, because if you look at the 3D type, and this is something they'll talk about in data visualization, is 3D, anything can sometimes actually distort how the data looks. So even though all of these chunks are completely even, it's 1/3, it almost looks like this one is a bit less in how that this is arranged. These ones look like they contain more almost. Another example of that, let's look at the bar chart. I just prefer to see it flat on the page. It's much easier for the human eye to understand it and not get confused about the data that's being presented to them. So the bar chart will load. Okay. So here you can see 3D images. The normal chart, you can see quite easily which bar is the tallest. This one, maybe not so much. You can see that this one is the tallest still, but in terms of how much taller, when it's sideways like this, it's just for me a bit harder to see. So the horizontal chart, you can also do it sideways like that, which is fine. So once you've picked your design, we'll just do vertical and normal. We go to data and enter the set. For this one, there's no upload button. So for this, hopefully you don't have so many values because you have to enter them all in by hand. But if you have like 20 things, it's fine. So it does go up to 200 items, but 200 items on a bar chart would be far too many anyways. So let's just pick that we have 10 values that we want to put in. And then from here, you can just call each thing by its name and then enter the value. So let's say I'm looking at the information desk and how many people have come up and what types of questions they've asked. I could put in printing queries, and then I would just call each one, and then I would just put in the value. So that's all you have to do for this kind of thing. You enter in all the data, then you choose your labels. So you would put the units of measurement if you have a unit of measurement for your X and Y axis. The graph title, if you hover over any of these two, you'll see like where this shows up on the graph. So you have to give it a title. You can give it a source of where you've gotten the data from. The y-axis label is on the side. And once you've done everything, you'll click on display, and then there's a button to download your chart. So this one's pretty easy. This is like as simple as it gets with data visualization, but it's free, so you can try this one out. Okay, the last thing I want to mention to you for visualizing your data is if you look online, you'll see tons of a type of design called infographics now. So let me just show you what those look like. If you just look at infographics and we look at images, these are the type of things that you're going to look at on Facebook all the time. So for example, here's an infographic. it's basically just a design that has some quick facts and figures and maybe a few images. It's very visual, so this is a great way to represent data to a wide audience of people. If you're putting it on social media, this is a great way to represent it. And even if you're doing a presentation of some type of research that you've conducted, this is a great way to convey the information quickly to your audience. So there's lots of different ways that you can make infographics. Here's one here. This is just the impact of ability housing and impact of homelessness, and you'll see lots of little charts. But to actually design this is quite a lot of work, so you can use a design software called Canva.com. It's a free design software and it has lots of free designs. And we can create a new design by clicking on More. So there's marketing materials, social media, all different kinds of things that you can do. You can even use it to do like your personal stuff, events, and things like that. But the one that we want is under blogging and ebooks, and it's Infographic. So you just click on Infographic and it will open up a new document for you. So this is a sort of skinny type of infographic that you could put on a blog or put on a website or something like that. And then these are designs that you can use. So let's just try this one. And you'll see that it's a free design. So from here, you can change everything just like a Microsoft Publisher or a Word document. You just click on the different elements. So each element has ways that you can change the size. You can delete it just by dragging it off if you want. You can change the text of any one of these things. So even if consulting industry overview wasn't something that we wanted to use in our infographic, we can just change it to types of trees. Something, anything, any type of data that you're trying to represent. And then you can actually upload, so this is uploads here, you can upload your own images. So if you've created a graph on either Plotly or MetaChart, you can actually upload your chart into your infographic. And most of these that you'll see, if we're just looking at layouts here, they're just very visual. So these are all ways, let's replace this content. These are basically just ways that you can represent data to people in a way that's really easy for them to understand, because you know people's attention spans are not long anymore. So especially if you're sharing it in a presentation, at a meeting, on social media, this is a great way to get your point across. So you can use any of these designs that say free. If it has the little dollar sign, that means it's a paid one-time design. So you could actually pay like as a once-off and then just use it once and download it once, but you would still have that as a download forever on your computer. For these, if it's free, you make your adjustments to it, whatever it is. So like here's a cool one. This is about trash in the ocean. So these are also very educational for people. And then there's a button right here that says download. So you'll just download it. You can download it as an image file, a PNG file, a JPEG, or PDFs if you're going to print it out and display it somewhere. So this is a really fun website. You can upload your own images here. As I said, you can add more text boxes, you can add more elements like shapes onto your design. So even if you don't have a design background and you just need to create something for whatever reason, or make something very visual that's easy for people to understand, I would really highly recommend Canva as something that you can use. So this session is a bit different than our normal information research skills session, but part of research is conveying your results to your audience. So hopefully some of these tools, Plotly, Canva, Tableau, and some of the other video sources will kind of get you acquainted with data visualization and some of the best ways to do that. So thanks very much for watching.